Welcome back. I've got Ken again, and we're going to dive back into a couple more questions. So, how much deposit do I need to purchase a home at the moment?
Well, interesting question. The sweet spot for banks is 20% deposit. So that's the number that they really like. The Reserve Bank recently restricted how much lending below 20% the banks can make. So that's put them under a bit of pressure.
Right.
However, you can still potentially get a loan with a 10% deposit and even a 5% deposit. Now, it's harder to do that. There are more restrictions. The 5% deposit in particular is a slightly more challenging one because it's guaranteed by the government, so Ka Order actually guarantees it. So not only do you have to have pass the criteria that the bank set, you also have to pass the criteria for Ka Order. However, having said that, I've had a number of clients recently that have managed to get into a house with a 5% deposit. Hasn't been that difficult. Process has taken quite a bit longer than normal. A few more hoops to jump through. Probably the only downside to the 5% deposit. Great way to get into a house with a low deposit. Only downside is that generally you have to, in fact, and every time you have to pay a little bit more in interest because it's government guaranteed. And you will always need a registered valuation, which you don't necessarily need with a 20% deposit. And unfortunately, a registered valuation can cost up to $1,000, so that's just an extra cost you need to factor in.
Yeah. So, sort of roughly, what would the interest rate difference be?
Anywhere from an extra 0.5, in the worst case scenario, an extra 0.75% on top of the current rate. So if the current rate's 3%, you might be paying 3.75%. Good news about that though is that after 6 months you can have your house revalued, and if it values up appropriately, then we can actually take that margin off. We refinance the loan and go back to the standard interest rate of the day.
Yeah, excellent. Right, okay, so next question. Can I use my Kiwisaver funds?
Absolutely. First home buyers in particular generally use Kiwisaver as their deposit. So for most of my clients, it's a mix of maybe 3 things. So it's any savings that they may have. It's their Kiwisaver funds, and more commonly now, it's a gift from a parent. In terms of the Kiwisaver, there are some qualifying criteria. So you have to have contributed a minimum of 3% for 3 years. It has to be your first home. It can't be another home. You have to live in it for 6 months. A couple of little things like that. However, it's by far and away the most popular and common form of deposit, in particular for first home buyers.
And sort of roughly time frame to access those funds?
It's done by your lawyer. After your loan is pre-approved using your Kiwisaver as a deposit, the lawyer, it generally takes 10 to 12 working days for the Kiwisaver funds to be drawn down from the provider.
Right.
Which is generally no problem because it's normally standard settlement is 4 weeks after the contract's unconditional, so there's generally plenty of time to get your Kiwisaver drawn down.
Right, excellent. Oh, well, Ken, that's good. So that wraps up a couple more questions for you. So thanks, Ken.
No problem.